Well, the House passing a trio of crypto bills overnight: the Clarity Act, the Genius Act, and the Anti-Central Bank Digital Currency Surveillance State Act. President Trump is set to sign them later today. Joining me now is Montana Congressman Troy Downing. He's a member of the House Financial Services Committee. Congressman, you say that Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act is critical towards protecting individual liberty and rejecting government coercion. Tell us more.
Absolutely. I mean, it borders on Orwellian. It allows the government to track your financial transactions, and that's only part of it. To be able to have that kind of intrusion into your personal life by the government, obviously most of us reject that idea, but it also gives them the ability to cut it off, to take it from you. It's just too much power. This is something that the Communist Chinese Party is doing to their citizens so that they can track and control, and Americans should just flat out reject this kind of government interference into their personal lives.
Yeah, and I think, too, going back and looking at what happened under the big, beautiful bill, taking out the idea that states would be able to regulate things like AI in that industry, that would have been a very dangerous precedent. I think really would have taken the country back when it came to development of AI. Now we're seeing the same thing, these positive moves with digital currencies and the stable coin, et cetera. And, you know, right. House Republicans secured another win for President Trump's agenda. They voted to cut $9 billion in federal spending. This has climbed back more than $1 billion from public broadcasting, $135 million from the World Health Organization, millions more from other programs like climate initiatives that were overseas, and then it formalizes some of the cuts that DOJ made earlier in the year. White House Budget Chief Russell Vought revealed another Recisions package to cut federal spending is likely going to be sent to you, to Congress, soon. Your reaction to that? Are you ready to do some more cutting?
Well, yeah. Well, here's the thing: is the president and most of us ran on fiscal responsibility, on making sure we're being stewards to taxpayer money. I personally, I'm glad we got this through. I walked off the floor about 1 o'clock this morning. Glad we got this through, but I think there's more meat on the bone because the taxpayers, I think a lot of them are shocked, like we are, that we're spending taxpayer dollars for Iraqi Sesame Street, that we're sending it, for these LGBTQ programs in the Balkans, that we're sending, condoms to, foreign. There's so much stuff in here that the American people didn't understand we're paying. We've got so much waste, fraud, and abuse. The president ran on this. We all ran on this, and we absolutely need to be stewards of taxpayer dollars. And I think there's more to come, and there should be more to come.
My colleague Todd Pyro's on set, sir. He's got a question for you.
Yeah, and along those lines, Congressman, my dad always says every penny counts, and that is definitely accurate. $9 billion is no small change. But I'm putting myself in the mindset not of a news guy here or somebody who's involved in the game of politics. It's really, I thought there was going to be a lot more. DOJ had all these big numbers, and yes, they finally settled on something that was lower than $2 trillion, but it was a lot more than $9 billion. And so for the viewer watching at home, what's it going to take to get across the finish line? I know we have this next Recisions package, but, is the end of government waste going to ever be officially over?
Well, I think there's always going to be some waste, fraud, and abuse. We need to be more diligent about it. I'm really glad that we have uncovered what we have. This rescissions package is one part of it. The reconciliation bill is another part of it, and we need to keep working towards that path. I think there's going to be very likely another reconciliation package. I think there's very likely going to be more rescissions packages. But at the end of the day, we need to make sure that every single dollar is being spent as the taxpayers want us to, and that we're cutting out waste, fraud, and abuse, and absolutely not spending money where it's not directly in the interest of the United States of America or our allies or our spot in the world. And a lot of this stuff has just gone crazy. Again, I'm sure that the Iraqis really love Sesame Street, but should an American taxpayer be paying for that? And, my answer is no.
Yeah, well, and certainly, Congressman, Americans, when we started to really look inside the world of DOJ and to see where there was so much waste, and it was laid out on a website, thanks to DOJ and Elon Musk, I think that a lot of eyes were open to the amount of waste. It's like, the waste was there, but then you see it with your own eyes. I want to pivot back to crypto for a second with you, because Maria had on Senator Tim Scott on earlier this week, and he talked about legislation in the crypto industry and kind of where we're going in the future and what this means for the United States. I want you to listen to what he told her.
America will be the crypto capital of the world, which means prices will go down, access will go up. This is important for us to get both the Genius Act and Clarity done, because first, Genius Act is the first step forward in this new crypto capital. The second piece, market structure, has to happen, and our guiding principles coming forward by the end of this week.
Now that these bills are going to be signed, as we move forward as a nation, hoping that the United States, and the plan is for us to lead the world when it comes to cryptocurrency, is there more to do, and where do you think this goes, sir?
Yeah, I think this is incredibly important, and I just want to break a couple of things down here. First of all, the Genius Act, that was the Stable Act in the House and then came back as a Genius. Basically, that is a dollar-backed cryptocurrency just to, streamline, financial transactions. And why that's important is it has to be a dollar derivative. That encourages around the globe folks using this technology to make sure that they're using the dollar as the global reserve currency, and that's what really gives us our position in the world. We need to make sure that we maintain that. The other part on the market structure, we need to make sure that we're encouraging innovation in the United States of America. I was the securities commissioner before I was in this office, and we had to deal with a Gary Gensler mess and with the FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried meltdown. That was offshored. We need to make sure that we're encouraging development in the United States. We need to be the center of innovation, and we have to have reasonable sideboards to make sure we don't have another meltdown. And I'm really proud of the work we did on committee, and I'm happy we got this, passed on the House floor.
Certainly, Congressman, everything that's been announced, including this 93.5% tariff on Chinese graphite. This is another positive step for the nation. Real quick, he's accusing Beijing of dumping it at unfair prices, and this is $347 million in imports. And this, of course, is that material used for EVs. What do you make of that, sir, before you go?
Well, this is a huge issue. Rare earths, critical minerals is important to our energy dominance. It's important to our national security, and we see bad actors trying to harm us in this space. So in my backyard, I've got the Sibanye-Stillwater mine, which is the only place in America that pulls platinum and palladium out of the ground. And they had to lay off 700 high-paid workers there because of Russian interference in the market. Basically, the Russians were dumping these metals into the market, causing unfair change in the commodities market, which made it economically unfeasible. So I have a bill to actually stop that and stop Russian dumping, but you're going to see that in other countries. China's one that obviously we're looking at very closely, but we need to make sure that we can produce these critical minerals in the interest of national security and our energy policy here domestically, and not be dependent on any other nation, especially one that's adversarial to us. So I'm really happy that we're starting to take some bold strides in that to make sure that we are producing here for what we need.
All right. Well, I agree with you on so many fronts. Congressman Troy Downing, it's so great to have you here. Thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity.
All right. We'll be right back, everybody.